So welcome everyone. My name is Laura Felucci. I'm the Executive Director here at MODA, which is the Museum of Design Atlanta. And if you haven't been here before, welcome. I hope we'll see you again. And if you're a regular, welcome back. I'm always happy to have you. Here at MODA, we define design as a creative process that inspires change, transforms lives, and makes the world a better place. And in that definition of design, the two most important words are process and change. We believe that design in all of its forms is the most powerful tool we have for taking on the 21st century's big challenges, from climate change to social justice, everything in between, and we all know that they're all related. So what we do here is that we work to create exhibitions and programs that empower and inspire people from every walk of life, designers and non-designers, to use design as a creative problem-solving process in order to create the just and equitable world that we all want to inhabit. If you are not already a MODA member or involved in MODA in some way or another, I invite you to join us. We have a community of people who believe in the power of design to make a difference. Anybody who's here tonight on the MODA team can talk to you about how you might get involved as a volunteer, a member, whatever works for you, and we would love to do that because we love new friends more than anything at MODA. We love old ones too, actually. We just love friends. For me, tonight is a really exciting evening. A few years ago, Midtown Alliance rolled out its Heart of the Arts program and provided artists with residencies in Midtown, and I loved the idea. And almost the first thing I did when they announced this was to call the Midtown Alliance team and say, why can't we also have designers in residence? And they said, yeah, great point. Fast forward a couple of years, and here we are with an artist designer in residence, but we'll come to that. MODA has partnered. This is the second round of the Heart of the Arts residencies. They did the first one starting a few years ago. And for this one, MODA partnered with Perkins & Will, an architecture firm, which occupies a couple floors above us, to create a home for Kristen for the next 18 months. Is that right? Yeah, for the next 18 months. So tonight we'll hear about his work and meet some of his collaborators from the Wild Seed Art and Design Collective. But a little bit about Kristen, and then I'm going to let him run the show and make the introductions. Kristen is a commission-based visual artist who was born in Atlanta and raised in Stone Mountain. His work synthesizes the original pillars of hip-hop culture, right out there on the wall in this exhibition, with social justice themes. And he uses his background in documentary filmmaking to create video collages of Afrofuturist and surrealist narratives. When Kristen isn't making art here or elsewhere, he's busy. He also teaches high school at the New School Atlanta. He teaches for Reimagine Atlanta, or Reimagine ATL. And he teaches film post-production at Georgia State. I don't really know how you're keeping track of your calendar, but I might need your help with mine. Kristen is also an alumni of the Creatives Project Studio Residency Program of C4's Atlanta's Hatch Intensive Program, and he holds degrees from Hampton University and Georgia Tech. So Kristen, welcome to the team. Glad to have you in the building. We're looking forward to working alongside you and with you. And just before I hand over the space here to Kristen, I want to give a shout out to the fierce and mighty MODA team, some who are here, some who are in the front. We are so lucky at MODA to have an incredible staff and team of volunteers that make events like this happen, and I'm really grateful for all they do and honored to work with them. So thank you, MODA team. Thank you all for being here. Kristen, it's all yours. And thanks.
All right, so as Laura said, I'm Kristen Wolford. Super gracious and thankful to Laura as well as Midtown Alliance for even creating this opportunity, this space. I'm definitely someone who feels extremely lucky and blessed. I also, I believe I'm talented, but this is truly an amazing opportunity. So I'm really thankful that you all are sharing this with me. So I'll just go right for it. Laura did a pretty good job with my intro. I'll skip a little bit over that. And I'll get right into my process as an artist and a designer. So as Laura mentioned, I'm really rooted in hip hop. That's probably the one culture that I can say is like a personal means of like bonding with other people I've interacted with. My family is not from America, they're from Trinidad, and moving over here, hip hop for me was like extremely special in terms of like feeling like I can connect with other people that I'm in school with, my community, and all that kind of stuff. So hip hop is like very much embedded in all that I do, and I'm pretty adamant about like asserting hip hop as more than just entertainment, more than just you know, gimmicks and soundtracks, but like there's some true power behind hip hop. So for me, I'm constantly referring back to quotes from lyrics, songs, that kind of thing. So this is just like one of the earliest ones that I can remember that kind of set me off on the journey that I'm on now. So this is a quote from Kendrick Lamar's High Power. Get up off them slave ships, build your own pyramids, write your own hieroglyphs. Laura didn't talk too much about it, but I know that she has a background in archaeology, and in our conversations, she shared with me that she feels like design is archaeology, but looking to the future and not so much looking to the past. So that's like a way that we, without even like talking that deeply, already had a little bit of a connection there as far as how we think about design and how we approach design. So for me, this was kind of like a call to action. 2011, I think I was working at a movie theater for minimum wage, and had just graduated from journalism school, and maybe was like still trying to kind of figure out my life. And I remember this song very vividly, being something that like inspired and motivated me to want to go out and like leave markers of like what's happening in time in that period of history, and then also start creating things that I would consider artifacts for people to look back on, and it's just reflective of like, you know, the era that we're living in. So, as I mentioned, I was working at a movie theater. From there, I moved on to learning about how to actually put together films. So, the mechanics of storytelling that I got at Hampton University for being a journalism student, they were cool, they were solid, but they didn't really go that in depth as far as like what I was truly interested in when it comes to expressing myself. So I then enrolled in Georgia State, learned how to actually make films from a production side as well as a theory side. But about maybe, I don't know, a couple months before graduation, I had that like, oh crap feeling, like, what am I going to do now? Like, okay, I got a film degree, but film degrees don't really necessarily matter that much. I need something that's like going to differentiate me. And I also was feeling like the film industry was on its way like to a place that I didn't want to be, which is what we're seeing now, I guess, like just a bunch of remakes and not like you know, true creativity, like, you know, being able to come out. So I did like a little bit of a pivot, and I applied to Georgia Tech, where I learned about interactive storytelling. So it was very nice that I had like the basics already down from that. I'm building up my tool set to be able to, you know, respond to that call to action. And at Georgia Tech, I learned about, you know, interaction design, like the idea of the internet being a medium for communication and storytelling, all this really cool, interesting, exciting things. And I took that, and then I started making art. So, did you?
No, I was just good to my bad.
If you have questions, like, please interrupt me. Like, I'd much rather have a like conversation than talk at you. So, yeah. So these are the tools that I got: interaction, filmmaking, and like just kind of basic communication through journalism. And with that in mind, like I said, I started making art. Before that, I was making documentary films, short films that pretty much all centered on social justice issues. But it started feeling a little exploitative, like I'm entering film competitions to like show Black trauma, and like when I would be on stage, like, you know, talking about my films, it didn't really feel like the messaging I was trying to get across was truly happening. And so I decided, like, okay, documentaries take way too long to make. I got to do something different. So I started looking at video art. While I was at Georgia Tech, I took an experimental film class for like studied, I don't know how many video artists, but it was something that really appealed to me and stuck out to me. And so I use that as the foundation for definitely like the kind of stuff that I'm making now. When I talk about art, and as far as hip hop goes, the mechanics of it are going to be layering, which is the way I use it is basically different video layers that are in communication with each other, and you'll get a better sense when you can actually see it. Flow, and then this concept of rupture. So flow, just like how does it feel as you're experiencing the work, and then rupture. You know, in hip hop, you might feel like that's maybe like an ad lib or something that like really just kind of sticks out or hits you in the chest, right? I'm talking about design, which is more so centered on you know, creating like products. Most of my design is protection designs, but I am starting to like dabble in streetwear design. I got a friend that's supposed to be showing me about sneaker designs. Like I'm about to start designing as many things as I can. But the way that I'm going to use hip hop with that, or I do, is very similar, right? So there are slight differences between art, in my opinion. Art is more expressive and emotional. Design is a little bit more intentioned. Like what, you know, you're creating pieces to represent people of a culture. You're creating pieces to get people to maybe take action. Several different, you know, ways that you could want that end outcome to be with whatever that person does with that product. But the processes, or the way that I'm approaching it, is going to be very similar. All right, so here's an example of one of my designs. I got commissioned by Atlanta Arts and Entertainment, and they showed my work on a billboard. They basically gave me a prompt. Like, this wasn't so much me just coming out of the blue with, you know, this concept. They gave me the concept to work from, and then I applied, you know, layering. So you see, as this is playing, like there are a bunch of different things that are going on. There's a printing press in the background. There's text in the foreground. There's a social justice activist all the way in the background. Like there's a lot going on. That's the layering, right? The flow, it's not playing on a loop, but if it did play on a loop, it would almost be unrecognizable, you know, when the piece begins and when it ends, because it basically ends and opens on the same type of footage. So you could just kind of loop forever without you really feeling anything. And then the concept of the rupture, and this one it's like maybe even almost over the top a little bit, but you know, there's literally a bubble that explodes, and there are hearts that come, you know, shooting out. So this piece was about the sit-ins, the way that they got kicked off in Atlanta. If you don't know the history, a group of students came together from the AUC Center, and they all basically, they kind of put together like a manifesto. They distributed it in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and then I think it was like a week later, they kicked off, you know, the sit-ins that we all know about, right? So my task, or my goal, was to represent that, the importance of that document, the manifesto that they put out, and this is the end result of that.
Rats and mice would give advice. They say you can paint it wrong. Get out of here. Go show
All
that
right.
we're more than
So then, from an art perspective, same kind of things going on here, except this again is like more so me just kind of expressing myself, right? There's not necessarily any goal for this. You're not necessarily supposed to feel like you're doing something, or you know, it's not necessarily representative of your culture. It's just a piece that I came up with. I wanted to explore the medium a little bit more, and this is what it looks like. So again, the same things are applied though, layers, right? I opened up with this layer, like with the lanes peeling across the screen. You got the cars in the background, right? My son right here, and then the work, everything happening on a different plane. Flow, the flow of the colors that he's changing as you're watching it is in sync with the vocals of the MC who's rapping, Andre 3000. He's talking about basically, you know, the hunger or the struggle that comes along with trying to survive, which is like a major, I guess you could say, like ethos of hip hop. You know, when it originally started, it was black people, like Hispanic friends, like coming together and just trying to make the most out of circumstances, trying to be, you know, hopeful in the face of extreme poverty, unemployment, drugs, like all kinds of stuff, right? So The song, visually, I'm trying to capture a little bit of that. So if you all were living here in Atlanta, last summer, of course, the water boys were everywhere. People were writing about it in the newspaper. There's like fear, some people like scared, and other people like, I respect that. I'm glad you're selling water and not like, selling drugs or robbing people, right? So I try to capture that feeling of the piece here. The shoes on the power lines is a common thing when you see driving around the hood or whatever. The water boys, like I said, that was just kind of like an iconic image of what this representation was for me. And then this idea of cheese. So cheese having multiple meanings, and being on the block of cheese, like all the wordplay that you have within that. I wanted that captured in the song as well, or in the piece. All right. The next quote I have, the Jay-Z quote, but all the hustlers, they love you just to see one of us make it. This is kind of a belief, I would say, or almost like a principle within hip hop of, they're kind of being like, some people call it a street code. But basically like, you're doing things to inspire other people. You are aware that, the gains that you're able to make, there's somebody coming up behind you who will get inspired by that, and who knows where they'll take it from there, right? So that's a quote that, I don't consider myself a hustler, but that idea of looking out for the one that's coming behind you and the impact it has on you. That's one of those quotes that I definitely resonate with. As Laura mentioned, I'm a teacher. I teach college, high school, and for a nonprofit. For me, I have my eyes open for other people that look like me as I'm in those classrooms. Trying to pass down as much of that knowledge and those skills as I can, and then also let them see like where it can take you, right? So I always open my classes telling them, hey kids, I started making films and videos and all this stuff when I was in high school. I thankfully had a teacher who gave me this knowledge and these skills and all that, and look where this could take you. And then maybe show them some of my work, or as I have things come up, I tell them about it, I share it with them, and then I also send them things that I see. So this idea of kind of looking out for your brother, being your brother's keeper, and being aware of the impact it has on others is represented in this quote from hip hop. And like I said, something that I carry with me in my work. Next slide. So this is Virgil Abloh, extremely famous and talented designer who passed away recently. But he's become a very central and key figure as far as like somebody that I'm studying. So I just wanted to put this on the screen and shout him out. But then also acknowledge the fact that he doesn't consider himself a designer. And depending on who you're talking to, they would probably be like, are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? But I like the fact that he is, I think, my take on it, is that he's like, don't put me in a box. Like, don't try to label me. Don't try to put a title on me. In some ways that can hurt me, even though in some ways it can help me. So he's, in addition to being a fashion designer, sneaker designer, product designer, like all kinds of stuff he's made. He's also a DJ, which is very fascinating to me as well. And you can kind of get a sense if you look at his work, how the skills it would take to kind of mix between different songs and be able to produce and pull things together. You can kind of see that play on his work. And again, I put that slide in there because I think titles are something that unfortunately has been a means of gatekeeping from several creators, like even myself. I'm 37 years old. I was born like a mile and a half maybe from here. Like I said, I've been making videos since high school, and I'm still out here like trying to assert myself as a creator, right? And I think a big part of that has to do with titles. That's something that he's very aware of. And I think he really did kind of dedicate the last part of his life towards shattering like these expectations that come with having these different titles and opening spaces for people who maybe don't have those titles to be validated and respected, right? So that's something else I kind of carry with me. This slide right here is a website that he put together before he passed away, and this is like, I guess, the teacher in me, but I just wanted to tell everyone who came that he put a website together on how to build a brand, what it takes to do that, how do you, find mentors, how do you present yourself, like all that kind of good information. He laid it all out here. It's completely free. And again, the whole point of it is to empower other people to like open things up, make it open source. You know, stop gatekeeping, stop making it so difficult for somebody who wants to just create to be able to express themselves. So that brings me to the collective that I have gone out of my way in some ways, I guess, to put together to work with me in this residency during this process of working with the Midtown Alliance. We've been tasked with creating public life experiences, and that can take a number of different forms: public art, events, workshops here at MODA, exhibitions, all kind of things. And I wanted to, you know, again, in the spirit of hip hop, you know, the same approach that Outkast had, the same, you know, collective that was able to launch them into international recognition and validation. You know, just kind of studying them. If you're not familiar, the Dungeon family was the collective that Outkast comes out of, that, you know, pretty much everyone from Atlanta knows about, but not everybody realizes that, you know, they were part of a collective, and it truly takes a collective, I believe, if you're trying to make any kind of change. With a collective, you know, you can balance out each other, you can learn from each other, and everybody ultimately gets stronger. There are things from the team that I'm working with right now. I mean, they're teaching me stuff. I know they probably look at me like, oh man, you did it, you figured this out, you figured that out. You know, they're very thankful. I'm very thankful to them too, because they keep me on point, and I'm learning from them, like I said. So in the quote there, I just put the Andre 3000 quote that's been used, you know, a million times. Everybody knows. Basically, the South got something to say, right? So I do think a big issue with us being creatives in the South is that we don't get the same respect. Just like, you know, they were struggling with that as they were trying to come out and be on the scene. Creatives in the South, things are a lot harder. We don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the same industries set up as maybe like in New York or LA for so many different avenues. So I mean, again, I truly believe it's going to take a collective effort for that to like change, for us to start getting the same kind of recognition and respect. So with that being said, you know, I literally pulled out my phone and started going through, you know, who were people I feel like put Atlanta culture on their back, and in a number of different ways. You know, will you all come meet up with me and just hear what I got to say and see if we can, you know, start coming up with some public art design installations and art pieces. So with that, the team that I put together, or that we all agreed to work together, it's called Wild Seed ATL. If you're trying to find us online, I'll put the contact info up later, but Wild Seed, or WAY, which stands for Wild Seed Awakened Imaginations, and you'll be seeing and hearing plenty from us. We've got several designs already underway, but I'll have the team come up and introduce themselves, and this is just kind of a visual of the different skill sets that everybody has, that we're all pulling from, that we're all learning from each other. So I do, of course, invite you all, once we're all done talking, to check out like some of the work on the sides. Each of us have contributed and have like visuals, or, you know, about a little bit of what we do, so you can get a sense. But this is, you know, kind of the skills bank of our collective. And like I said, we already have some projects underway. So the first one that we're thinking through is a community-based laser display project, where the concept is, and I gotta get permission, or we have to get permission, or maybe we'll just do it, I don't know, is to project have a laser display directly across the street on the High Museum, where pretty much anybody can just walk up and use this installation and be able to express themselves. You know, one person may, you know, just happy birthday to me. Somebody else may have, you know, a painting that they want, you know, represented and just blown up on a large scale. And so we're going to be focusing on getting on High Museum. Also, it's kind of like a call to them to, you know, kind of open up what it means to be a museum. Like Laura's already doing that kind of work, but we want that to spread. And also challenge them on, you know, where does digital art fit in the context of fine art? Me personally, I mean, my struggle with the type of art that I do, everything I do is digital. I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to sculpt. I don't know how to do much with my hands, but I can I can kill it on the computer. so I've been having trouble, like even just showing work at galleries, right? Like I said, I've put a lot of time. I paid my dues and put my 10,000 hours in. But still, in a lot of ways, depending on what it is, getting gatekeeped, whether it be the subject matter or the medium, it's not easy. So we have a project where we're hoping to bring people together. If you see something big on a wall, people start pointing, start looking, the crowd start gathering, and then maybe you start getting to talking to somebody that you don't know. Maybe you learn something about somebody else's culture or something. You never know. That's what we're working on right now. Just have to get some clearances and permissions, but that's like a sample of what that project will look like. So me personally, I just put in This Is Hip Hop. Like I said, it's a laser that you can program to say and show a number of different things. And so that's what we're currently working on. That one's maybe the furthest along, but like I said, we have some more stuff coming out of the pipeline. That being said, it's time for me to finally stop talking and pass this off. The next person, member of Wild Seed, Awakened Imaginations Art and Design Collective, passing it off to Jacayla. So come on.
Hey everybody, I'm Jacayla Brown. I'm also known as Sankofa, so if you ever saw me in these activist streets using my Sankofa name, that's probably what you might know me by. So I've been in Atlanta for like the last 15 plus years. I moved here my junior year of high school from Maryland. I'm a Maryland native, but I moved around a lot when I was younger. And I have a lot of experience in different things. So like I said, I'm a community activist. I'm a photographer. I actually full-time I do civic data management for a nonpartisan nonprofit in Georgia. And recently I started to get into body paint, which was very special to me because I think that there's a lot of healing that can be done through body paint practice. And for those who don't know much about body paint, a lot of times I think people's experience with body paint is like, those secret parties where they get painted. But I've actually shown at Future Dead Artist Gallery. I've done live sessions there. And a lot of the work that I'm doing with my body paint is figuring out how we can trace family lineage using body paint, using symbols, using lines. Have you ever heard of something called a genogram? Also, I'm a talk back kind of person, so don't be afraid to talk to me. I'm not talking at you, I'm talking with you. So have anybody in this room heard of a genogram? Okay, hush, Chris. No, but genograms are used in behavioral science in order to link family lineage using shapes and symbols and lines in order to connect. So as you can see here, I have some of my body paint. Also, I'm an artist documenter. This is a new term that I am trying out. Honestly, I've just always spent my time working with artists, figuring out what their process is, figuring out how I can capture them in the most vulnerable way. I think it's important when we talk about artists or we talk about creatives or we talk about designers, anything that you want to call creative people, I think it's important for us to talk about being vulnerable within your process and sharing that vulnerability with other people. Because if you're not sharing your vulnerability, if you're not showing up as your honest and full self, then you're not allowing for somebody in the room that can relate to you on that honest and vulnerable level to show up and relate to you. So as you can see, these are some artists, some of my friends / artists that I've done mural documentation for. Some people who have studios, so I come out and do some studio documentation for them. But the thing that's near and dear to my heart, of course, because it's more recent, is my body paint. So as you see here, this is a representation of 3 generations of his family. So if you see the triangles are actually male figures in the family, the circles are female figures in the family. This first line is his parents. This second line in black is going to be his siblings. And then in blue, you can't really tell the difference of the blue and the black, but these lines that are more on the outwards are going to be his nieces and nephews. So basically, it's a full representation of this person's family on their back. The same here as well. Parents, this is the X usually represents the person, and then this is the siblings, and then these would be the niece and nephews. Also, a really big thing that I've done recently is work on this Earthseed project with my sister. It's okay. But when I talk about being vulnerable, I mean like that with my full spirit, my soul, like my family lineage. You're going to see the images that are going to come up are some of my ancestors. Some very emotional things came up for us when we did our ancestry project through Earthseed project. A lot of it was finding out about our grandmother and our grandfather who were like known in South Carolina. No. If I fuss at Chris, because he's been my friend for so long, I promise I'm nice, no. But so it's important for us to actually be vulnerable and to share our stories, because sometimes our stories are bigger than us, right? The things that I have experienced in my life, I've been affected by like some things that have happened in my family that before me and my sister were actually able to get language for or get the research or read the articles about, we didn't have much understanding of why we might have felt a certain way or why we showed up and engaged with people in a certain way. So I think it's important as an artist, as a creative, especially in collective groups, that you work hard to show up as your full self. I know I've said that multiple times, but the intersectionality of a creative is what makes it so important and what makes it so relatable to other people. You never know what part of your story is going to touch someone. So I want to be very vulnerable with you right now. I'm going to share a small part of that project with you guys. Overall, I feel like what I contribute, I'm gonna pop him, and I know his hands are here, so I can't pop him. But overall, what I think I contribute to the collective is just multiple networks, because I come from different backgrounds, different experiences, but also just this reminder that we need to always be documenting our process. We always need to be thinking about how we can bring in other artists, other creatives, other people in the community in order for us to do this great work in a way that's intentional. So I am going to be vulnerable and share this little slide with you. If you pull out your phone and you try to scan this beautiful thing, it's actually going to bring you to a reel on my Instagram of some artist documentation I did of Chris when he did his first billboard. So it's actually his first reactions to him viewing his billboard. You can play this. So as you see, you'll start to see some of my family members that have had some of the family photos that we were able to archive and find, some of the actual like census data. This is a little bit more emotional because my great grandfather killed my great grandmother, and the only knowledge that we have of that so far is through articles and news clippings that we found during our search for our ancestry. These are more recent pictures of my mom, my sisters, just to talk about the fact that it's all relevant, right? Even though that happened a long time ago, it still affects us to this day, and it affects how I show up as a creative, as an artist. That's my grandmother. And this is my grandmother's, great-grandmother's land. So I appreciate everybody, thank you.
I am Bianca Cato. I am an Atlanta native, born and raised. I also went to Georgia State. I was a film studies major and a theatric design major. So I love to be here in this space and see all of these models. It brings me back to my theater days. I'm also the founder of Audio Video Club here in Atlanta. It is a projector and screen dedicated to the exploration of audio and visual arts. Right now we're really focusing on film and showcasing local filmmakers. We have a series of events that happen monthly, weekly, all over the city. Our main event is at Peter Street Station, which we have an event this Friday featuring the lovely Olama. We'll be showcasing a series of her films. I'm just so glad to be here and to be a part of WALSEED. I hope to bring my grant writing skills, my nonprofit management skills, as well as my passion for film and bringing film into places that it normally isn't. So I look forward to working with Kristen on some of these projections and laser projects all over the city. As you can tell, I'm also very short and sweet because I'm usually in the black in the headset in the background. I'm not the person in front. So I'm normally not out here talking to people. But here are a few pictures want to come out and be a part of the community, you can check out audiovideoclub.org, where we have a calendar of lots of events. I also partner with Brooke here, who runs ATL Film Party. Don't be shy. She's also a person in the background who doesn't like to talk a lot. And we collaborate on a lot of awesome events around the city. So plug in, make the Atlanta film community more local.
Hello everyone, I'm Jasmine Kennard. I go by Jazzy Elise. I'm an architectural artist, a designer, owner, which means that I went to school for architecture and I practice as a designer, and now I own a company called Jazzy Made where I sell my artwork. I was also born in Atlanta, so I'm a Grady baby, if that means anything to anyone. And I'm satisfied in my soul when I uplift and inspire others. So this is just a quick clip of some of the people that I've become collectors of my artwork over 2022, which is the year that I decided to no longer practice, but just create. So I received my Bachelor of Architecture and minor in Business in 2013. I'm an alumni to the Gates Millennium Scholarship Program, if any of you know about that. Bill and Melinda Gates gave money to like 1,000 students over 10 years, 500 on the East Coast, 500 on the West Coast for schooling. So I got a full ride scholarship, academic scholarship to any college I want to go to. Could cover all up to my doctorate, but I chose to study architecture, and they have specific programs that they were willing to support. So that being said, I just did what I was meant to do, which was to go to school for architecture. I was able to study abroad in Barcelona, in Spain, and Paris. And while I was there, I was able to work on a project with Tadashi Kawamata, where we were able to build a collective project inside of Park Novelette. It was basically like bringing a whole bunch of creatives from all over the world to actively participate in creating something that's supposed to be permanent. So it was all wood constructed, and I just thought it like fit well with what we're talking about today, because we're all from different parts of society. We have different skill sets and knowledge that we bring into this group, and I felt like at the end of the collective it was something that was very beautiful. And also while I was in Germany, I was able to design a project competition for the city of Dessau, where we were supposed to preserve a historical site, Hugo Junker's airplane hangar, which was commandeered by the Nazis during the war, and it was still there, and so we were able to come up with some design elements that would make the city revitalized. And I won in that competition, so that's kind of what I bring to the stage, my design, knowing how to take some concepts and try to make it into something that's real. So that then I went to practice as an engineer, a plumbing designer for 7 years, and during that time I was featured in Plumbing Engineer. I have the article in the newspaper is over there, and that is also my model, which you see, that's my thesis from college. I'll talk a little bit about that. That was about creating a community for the underserved in a way that could be built and constructed sustainably, because the underserved can't necessarily afford nice housing, but they deserve to live in structures that are nice. And so this community was set to expand and contract based on the population, so it wouldn't become like overrun and vacant. So it was really just about how do you create a structure that can change and grow with the people that are living there. And so that was about a collective living. So I'm just kind of bringing that word back into the conversation again. And then my thesis, the book that I had to prepare for that project, is on the table if you want to look at that as well. And then that was the top 10 engineers in their 20s. I was able to participate in this article to talk about my experience as a plumbing designer. One of the projects that I worked on, I was the lead designer for, was Scott Boulevard, which is downtown Decatur. I designed all the retail, the offices, and the commercial spaces there. So I had to play my hand in design on that level, and that was really fun. And at the same time, my heart was still driven to art, and so what I decided to do was to launch myself into the art world. And so I displayed for the first time in the Southeast Railway Museum, and this is the piece of art that I created for that project. And Lexi Torres was my mentor. From there I got to meet him, and then so I've just been kind of like from that time putting myself out there in art galleries and underground art shows, and like sharing my work to people. And then like taking ownership, I would say, just means that I decided to create products that could connect to everyone. I think there's a, like, art sometimes can say it's too expensive, everyone can afford it, so I can't have something nice in my home, and I felt like that was an issue. So I created artwork that you can take with you. So I have a journal, I have wall clocks, I have products that you can, I say, take the art that you love with you at a more reasonable price, so that everyone feels like they can connect with art, and everyone feels like they can be inspired wherever they go. And so I have some of those products on the table over there. And my most recent contract was with the Lowe's Hotel, and I just thought that was really large, so I wanted to share that with you. In the future, I imagine a safe place to reflection, which that means it doesn't have to be in a public place like a gallery, so etc. I imagine a space like your living room that's considered a sacred place that you can reflect internally and like be inspired. And so I like to create artwork that does that for people, and I imagine my artwork being everywhere around the world. And so the video that I put up front was just like proof that I've been able to do that. And so many people have collected, so many people have been inspired, and I enjoy meeting people who see my artwork. They tell me how it makes them feel. They tell me what they might have been going through before they got to meet me and talk about it, and how they feel now that they've seen something or they bought something that made them feel good. And so me working with this collective, I would like to create projects that inspire people on that scale. Like, you see this thing, you experience this thing, and it makes you feel uplifted and hopefully lighthearted. And so that's my goal for working with the group. So.
Good evening, folks. Good evening. I identify as Son Christopher. I'm an artist, I'm a lyricist, and I use my lyrics as a way to dramatize the themes of social justice and the themes of healing, love, and rhythm. One of the things about hip hop is freedom, love, unity, and having fun. Those are the tenets, right? Right? Right. I had the good fortune of coming to Atlanta in the 90s. Started at Georgia State University and had an experience with activism there that I didn't realize would shape me so much. During that time, we were also, many of the children running around the city of Atlanta trying to get a record deal. I first got to Georgia State and they said, "Hey, you've been picked. You're going to Hollywood." And so we set out. I did maybe a quarter at Georgia State and found myself in Hollywood recording an album in LA, living the life. The video people that like to hang around people that like to do rap. And all of that good stuff. I had great good fortune. Our group was called Afroplane, and the plane went up and it went down very quickly. But we had a great time. Someone reminded me recently, they said, "You know what, man, you're the first dude I ever met with a real record deal." I was like, "Yeah, I'm talking about that shit." But it's true. I did a Dave Chappelle. I went on tour. I lasted for about 3 years with this record company, RCA. And I walked away. I said, "I'm good with that life. That's a little too much, too weird. I don't know about all that. I'm a church boy." Okay? And so, being that I was from church, we came to Atlanta because my mother saw Spelman College on television. She was going back to school. And she said, "I'm going to graduate from there." So we got up, left Texas, didn't know a soul here, landed right smack dab in the heart of this. Anybody ever heard of a place called Southwest Atlanta? The Swats? Campbellton Road right here, baby. Okay? So out of that culture came myself, Outkast, Goody Mob, the Dungeon Family, all of those guys. Now we didn't know each other, but when we got on tour, we were like, oh, we're so glad to see somebody from Atlanta. Oh, Jesus. You know, yeah, I saw you at the talent show years ago. But we were so thankful. We were at the first Source Awards where the beef got kicked off between East and West. Onyx came out, throw your guns in the air, like you just don't care. Now, these were real guns. These were real guns. I don't think they were real bullets, but they would have some caps in there. So again, that was new. And Outkast said their famous words, you know, the South has something to say. And we do. And we continue to have something to say. And right now at this point in my life, what I am doing is I am focused on, again, the tenets of healing, love, and rhythm. And one of the best ways to get healing is to tell the truth. Remember, South Africa came together and had a bloodless revolution because everybody on both sides came together and told what they did. And that was the only way they could have truth and reconciliation. So I start with the first theme of healing. We must tell the truth. And a story that is so intense to our lives here as Black people, as Atlantans, as Georgians, is what happened to Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia. We saw that live on television. We knew it was a terrible thing. And we knew that the only way we could come together was for those people that we saw on television to get the justice that was meted out to them. And so in that spirit, I created what are called Cops baseball cards. You see them here, they are trading cards. On the front, you see 5 racist faces. We have a few scattered around here. They're called Cops trading cards. And what I wanted to do was to make a satirical but very intense way of saying, we need to do something about this. So there's 5 in total, 5 for everybody who was responsible for Ahmaud Arbery's death. And what these cards do, they go to a place of satire. You know, it's like what they say in that movie Serafina, whether I laugh or I cry, it doesn't matter, so I choose to laugh. And in the face of bitter and extreme rejection, I laugh, even while I'm crying. And so I had to find a way to get this rage, this anger up out of me. And I found it in baseball cards. Mass Influence has a song called Friendly Game of Baseball. It's a hip hop song. And what he's doing there, the group is doing, they're comparing baseball to the other American pastime, which seems to be the lynching of Black men here in this country. When we see that on television, what we saw happen with Tyre Nichols, that was a lynching. 1 in 1,000, 1 in 1,000. Will it be you? Will it be me? Will it be our children? Sucks to think that way. But one of the things I like that Jazzy said at our meeting, she said, I would love to be able to create, and she does, be able to create art not out of pain. Not out of pain, but just for the sake of creating beauty. Well, right now in my journey, I must create art out of pain because I must let that pain become a part of my prize. And as a hip hopper, and as an artist, and a lover of this city, the last book that my mother gave me before she passed away, she gave me a book by a Japanese poet. And it's called The City in Which I Loved You. And this is that city, Atlanta. I'm in love with Atlanta. I think about it day and night. I've lived all over the country, but I come home, my children were born here. I love Atlanta, and I'm so thankful that Chris gave me this opportunity to put my stamp on it, to create these wonderful projects with Wild Seed, and to go forth and say, yes, there is not just veneration for myself and my art and my talents, and the fact that I never got my goddamn Grammy. The album is dope, I will say. We were the first band to ever record a full hip-hop album with all live instruments. Our first gig was opening up for Wu-Tang Clan at their first album release party. Let's just say, 5 boys from Atlanta had never seen anything like that. Okay, they would scream, the Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. They pushed Afro playing out on the stage. Let's say the people were not happy with us. But I continue there is a term called, oh shoot, design, it was on my design intervention. And that's where you create a prototype that people interact with, and it has a definite reflection in their lives as humans. It's that archaeology, that moving forward of the archaeology. And so as artists, that's what we're always doing. You finish the art. We just create it, but you interpret it, and you say what it means to you. And we hope that it has a divine and a wonderful impact on you. And so right now, I've been running the streets, doing pop-up shows about my art here. I've been kicked out of several galleries also. Some said the subject matter was too much. But I say, take the card, call that number on the back, down to the Brunswick District Attorney's office, and ask them, when is Jackie Johnson going to be held on trial? You know, this is like Pokemon for me. I got to catch them all. And I won't stop until I do. But I realize these cards, from a design standpoint, they go even further. We're going to do one for Brett Favre. He gets a card. You know, this goes into so much. The woman who was responsible for the Scorpions up in Memphis, she was also responsible for Katherine Johnson's death right here in Atlanta, Georgia, over the Red Dogs. Somebody sent me a text and said, look like you got some more cards to make. I agree, I do. I have many. They're endless. When will they ever go away? Go to the side. So, this is the first time that I premiered them in large form. The city of Atlanta, one of my shining baubles, has given me a grant to make these in large, I'm calling them the new Confederate monuments. I want to make them large so people can see them. These are the smaller versions, but these are those prototypes that I hope to invoke something in you. So this is the first time I'm hosting here at iDrum, their open mic there. The other part of the cards is what I call Goody Mob. Now, Outkast is dope, but Goody Mob, when I heard them, I started listening to rap again. Because prior to that, it wasn't saying anything, but the language of the people that I went to school with, like this brother right here from Stone Mountain, that language and that culture, I came back from LA and I finally heard it and I understood it. I said, oh, those are my people there. I'm not a Grady baby, I'm a Grady graduate right up the street here in Midtown. I spent a lot of time there running around trying to figure this city out, riding MODA, all of those beautiful things. And so I said, what does Goody Mob mean? And if you listen to their album, it says, the good die mostly over bullshit. That's what those letters mean. And so I wanted to honor these martyrs. So I began reimagining all of their CDs, their album covers, with the faces of the good who have died over bullshit. And we're working on that project right now. Breonna Taylor there, but there's so many more. And alas, I come to the sad part. The way that I come to this is because in 2004, I got a phone call. I was hosting a show, and it wasn't going well. I was drinking too much, partying too much. And I'm done. Went to work at CVS. You need 6 months. I'll give you 6 months. I'll figure it out. But I left, and I got this horrible red phone call telling me that someone had jumped on my mother. That they had beat her unrecognizably. And I had to leave work. I didn't. What do you do? The movies teach us that in those situations you're supposed to get a gun and have retribution. That's what the movies tell us, but I can't do that in this society. So I had to get justice. And I created an organization called I Am Creative Justice. Because that's the way that I was made my pain a part of my prize. This is Leading Boy here. His story has just come to light. I was with his family recently, and my goal here is to put all of these guys in stained glass and elevate them to iconography. Saints, martyrs. These are the rough drafts here, but they're coming along quite well. This gentleman said I should actually make stained glass. I think I will. So, the healing by telling the truth. Now the love, I had to do something about it. Please play the slide. want to live in the world given to you or the world you dream of? The U.S. National Academy of Science estimates that 1 in 1,000 black men can expect to be killed by the police. In 2004, Malini Turner, artist, scholar, and mother, died from the injuries suffered from an attack by the Big Spring, Texas Police Department. Not only her, but her granddaughter, due to being tased while in the womb. She was stillborn. While there were no charges brought against the officers, justice is still needed. In 2019, I Am Creative Justice founded the first International Avari Malini Turner Justice Scholarship Fund at Spelman College. The I Am Scholarship is an endowment. Each scholarship awards tuition and supports students whose family has been impacted by police violence. It encourages study in the realms of social, environmental, criminal, and international justice. With your donations and support, we can make a difference in the lives of each awarded student. Know that each submission by a student will be archived, putting a face on the plight of police brutality. Their truth brings our society closer to reconciliation. Let us together change the world. Be the change you seek. Be empowered. Be brave. With I Am Creative Justice. And that's the love. Again, the organization is called I Am Creative Justice. It is in honor of my mother, but so many others. I make these cards for family members who say, will you honor my children? And I do. And the other part of that is rhythm. We have the healing, we have the love, which is a scholarship, and now we have the rhythm. Someone said to me recently, it ain't African if it ain't got the drum. And I tend to agree, and that's why I was so thankful to Miranda for getting the music playing for us. I definitely appreciate that. So right now, I spent the pandemic living a wonderful life, although I caught COVID several times. It was a bad one too. Wasn't hospitalized, but they definitely kept me in a box for a minute. So, but one of the things that came out of that is that someone said to me, hey, I want to tell your story. I met this brother online. He said, I want to tell your story. He was out in LA and I thought he was a house DJ from here. He's like, no, I hate house music. I said, okay, pardon me. But he said he wanted to tell my story, so we began trading music back and forth, and finally got to a point where I had to go to LA and finish this project. And the project is called Post-Millennium Ascension. And if anyone knows anything about trip hop, there's an artist in the 90s that did an album called Pre-Millennium Tension. So mine is Post-Millennium Ascension. And that's also a play on my mother's name, Malini. And so I had a wonderful artist here in Atlanta that I met at Peter Street Station. She became a good friend, Emmy Award-winning videographer from Channel 11. She left, she bounced, and she said, what am I doing next? I said, we'll do some art. So after a bit of fungus, we figured out that we could create music videos without having to shoot myself and just illustrating the words. So now, from Post-Millennium Ascension, this is a Black Tulsa song, and it's called Here I Go Again.
Songs of yesterday, I made up my
Nightly visions weave dreams of dreams. My heart prefers to pump streams of steam. Up and down pathways of realization. I taste a hoop of stimuli and I am bathed in pleasure and work. Finding new trails to dust, we hammer away the crust. Learning to trust the best of my flow. Flicking the boomerang of my arm, finger to elbow, steel to cornrow. Cowardissimo to brave, and I'm no longer the knave. You see, they got me running like tight Navy warriors. I got this microphone weapon in hand, tearing through space and time to the liberation of mankind and sharpening my mind as the quest continues through. Barren landscapes climax only from the hilltops, but I can't stop. You see, my tears can never hold me down. They are only a point on this burning fuse of a timeline, and I'll master this night. Before the charge explodes and the shrapnel-laced nightmares run the tide streams, dance your way to the people. Deliver your ambrosia as a potion of abortion to the multitudes. The morning he arrives. There is no way to stop this. You see, the spring of my heart gathers its dew to reveal it on the way for you, the triggers of life. Drop by drop, announcing the joy of refreshment. When the wind comes a-stirring, there is an release from your skin. As waves of oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen are hailed by bending trees who bow and vow not to break. Rather, they give strength to the fingers of energy, weaving their way through the treetops, extensions of the hand of the atmospheric mother. I made up my mind. I ain't wasting no time. Here I go again. And my prayer, hold this coolness. Let it fade not. Allow these the drinkers of life to rejoice in the ebb and flow of this tide. Wind, water, and the coming of the sun. Thank you all. Again, my name is Son Christopher. The IG is, you know what it is. Again. Thank you for your ears. Chris, I want to thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this. I want to thank all my teammates, Bianca, Jakayla, and obviously Jazzy here. And I'm thankful to Gavan for shooting this. Laura, thank you for having us here. Miranda, thank you. And thank you all beautiful people. This is not the end, because Chris has something for us. Thank you. Cheers.
Really quickly, we're wrapping up. There is one more member of our collective that's not here that I'm kind of representative of. Me and my friend, or friends, from maybe 10 years ago. We started up a tech company that will also be contributing to our collective. So I just had a couple of, it's called a demo reel where you just show a little bit of the work. So you just see a couple of the examples of the level of animation that we're doing. The different styles that we're capable of doing. We work on animation, 360 VR headset experiences, which we have on the tables. And I'll set one up for you all after I'm done talking, standing up here, if you want to check it out. And we also are working on developing and building a holographic display, which we are like maybe 15% of the way getting it built. But Jasmine and her team are designing the platform that the hologram is going to be on, and then us as a tech company will be actually providing the visuals that are in there. So you kind of get a little bit of a sense of the technology side that we're bringing to some of the other skill sets that have been discussed and presented and talked about here so far. That was a quick glimpse of the hologram. But with that being said, I truly appreciate all of you coming out from the bottom of my heart. We wanted to test things out by doing a little bit of a workshop, design participatory workshop experience, if you will, where we actually can like open things up and hear from you all. Like, what are some of the things that you would be interested in seeing and maybe experiencing around Midtown? And then also just kind of open the floor for us to be able to have some more casual conversation. All of us are pretty relaxed in the collective, I would say, so we would much rather like have conversations than stand up here and do this. So feel free to, if you have any questions or thoughts or just anything at all, we'd love to start conversations around that. So if you want to facilitate.
Okay, I'm the one who likes to talk the most, so maybe the facilitator. For one, I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Again, this is not the end. We really want this to be a conversation. I think it's important, like I said, when I went, we were very vulnerable with you guys. We shared our experiences, our stories. We shared like what we plan to do in the future, but it's not an isolation from you, right? We want all of you guys to be a part of the things that we plan to bring to Midtown Atlanta, bring to just the environment of Atlanta in general. So we have film directors or filmmakers in the room. We have artists in the room. We have MODA in the room. We have a lot of great people in the room. So I want us to be able to open up and have conversations about what we think the vision of where some of the things that we talked about, what maybe ideas that you guys have, what you want to see more of in the city. So no pressure, but I will volunteer somebody, okay? So is it on anybody's heart, anybody's spirit to talk about?
I've got a question for Chris.
Oh, go ahead. Or questions, that's great.
For sure. I know you said you teach at Georgia State. I'm a grad student at Georgia State. I'm taking the art of activism class. That's why I'm here today. And I was just wondering, like, what days do you be on campus?
Usually there are Wednesdays and Thursdays, like almost all day.
Okay.
But I live pretty close by as well. Like, if you ever want to link up,
okay.
Seriously, we can talk about it. What program is that?
It's called Creative and Innovative Education.
Oh.
Yeah, it's one of the newest, like, we the only grad program in the world, and so that's pretty new.
I would love to connect with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, we will all love to connect with you.
Yeah.
Anybody have any more questions or maybe some ideas?
I have two questions.
Oh, can you say your name first?
I'll
be that guy.
My name is Willie. I've known Chris for a while. So it's for Chris and then also the team. So the first question, as a creative, how do you decipher when to pivot on an idea and when to push through and say, this is part of my journey to get there? Second question is trust. So like, y'all are a team, so how do you all build that trust so you can, because you mentioned being very vulnerable in all y'all's work, so how do you build that trust between, not strangers, but other people that's like, hey, I'm gonna let you in here to critique or add value to what I'm trying to build?
Okay, yeah. As far as like creative decisions, I mean, I'm very hesitant to like, honestly, like let people watch me as I'm working, because I mean, it's pretty like nuts. Like, you probably realize I'm kind of psycho. Like, I have like 40, 50,000 tabs open. I'm like pulling from here, pulling from there. The process is like super messy. Like on paper, I know like, okay, I do this first, and I do that, and I do that, and I do that, but like the reality of it is it's pretty wild, to say the least. But as far as like, how do I decide when to pivot? Honestly, I just go off my feelings. Like, I'm playing my stuff back over and over again, looking at it, take a break, come back to it. How does it make me feel? Is it making me feel uplifted, inspiring, kind of like how Jasmine approaches her work? Or is it like, hitting you in the face, making you like be confronted with the realities of racism, more like Son Christopher. So I'm constantly trying to find that balance. And also, it just depends on who's showing the work, to be honest. I've had people tell me like, no, you can't show that. Like, what are you doing? Like, no, you can't show that in our offices or our whatever. We're not going to pay you to show that kind of work, or whatever. So honestly, I'm constantly just trying to see what I can get away with here and there. Just trying to open up space again, so that if I somehow kind of slip through, maybe somebody else or other people will see that and like, oh, I didn't know I could even make that kind of artwork and somehow get supported. So it's really I guess feeling, as far as like me personally, like how I approach the work. If it makes me feel something strongly, then I feel like I'm on the right track. If it don't really feel nothing when I look at it, I'm just kind of like, all right, let me scrap that and readjust. So yeah, I would say that for the most part. And then trust. I don't know. These are just people that I trust. I mean, of course, there's been a lot of time between us for some of us. Jasmine is actually my sister's like best friend from high school, and I just always thought Jasmine was really cool and smart. And then, and then she started making art, and I was like, dang, you're really good. And like just like here we are now. Kayla, we met protesting out in the streets. So at the very least, I'm like, I know she was like down for our people, so I trust her. You know what I'm saying? I'll get out there and protest. And we work together in other projects as well. So, something that's happened over time. I haven't known that long. So Christopher, I haven't known that long, to be honest. But Bianca's the first person that showed that film that you saw before in the basement. I'd never shown that film again until Bianca, and that's like 7 years later or something like that, right? So again, it's kind of like, okay, I feel like we're on the same wavelength. And I've seen Bianca out there doing the work. A lot of people, on the surface, they present themselves as one way, as artists, huge egos, all kind of stuff. And Bianca's like super humble. And when I tell you she'd be out there working, Bianca does like 4 events a week, every week, or something crazy like that. Yeah, so it's like I see you, sis. Like, how can I elevate you? You're helping out so many other people. Like, if this platform, is helping for you, hopefully you trust me enough to come along and be a part. So that's how I approach it.
Can I speak to that too?
I think, can I answer first? Okay, I'm going to pass it to Bianca. Back go to the restaurant. But I just wanted to say that I think that it's important, like when I say vulnerability, I think it's important to show up as your full self. And sometimes that's hard if you don't trust people. I think that the way that you work through that is by like having open and honest communication with your team about like vulnerable points. Also, like as somebody who is very trauma informed, just because I've gone through a lot of family and trauma, so I've learned how to better communicate through like those conversations or those trigger moments or those times of feeling uncomfortable, or like sometimes you might not agree. I think sometimes when people think about creatives collectively coming together to create things, that we think about like all these different aspects. As you see, we all come from different backgrounds, we have different experience levels. So for me, I think the way that trust shows up for me, for all of the people in my collective, is by just being honest about like we're not going to agree on everything. Like it might not always be like we all have a consensus about something, but as long as we know that we have our values at the base of it, our mission at the base of it, then I can stand behind whatever we put out. Because I know that these people in this room care about the intentionality behind what we're doing. And then as far as like, aside from trust, what was the first one?
How do you arrive at your like creative destination? Pivoting.
Oh, like to pivot.
Refining.
I think to pivot for us is like to have a idea, and once we have like collective pull towards that idea, like figuring out what's going to work best for everybody basically. And if it doesn't work for everybody, figuring out what we're willing to compromise on and what we're not. Like when Chris was saying, like if you find that like in his own creative process, he gets to a point where like he's very confident, or like this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to, this is my end result. Sometimes it's hard to show up to a collective that way, right? Because then it's like, well actually I think we need to do this, or I think we need to do that. So being open and vulnerable to that criticism, to that feedback, but also holding your ground when it's something that you're passionate about. And I'm passing it to you.
Okay. How are we doing on time?
It's 7:59.
Okay. All right. I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the question about the creative process. because like you described, we're all different, we're all coming from different intelligence. And for me, I always like to ask questions. So I know like I can get in my own head sometimes, and then like I don't know how to arrive where I want to go. I ask a lot of people opinions, and then whatever sounds the best, that's what I go with. So it doesn't bother me that in this group we have to talk to each other and communicate about our ideas or what we're interested in. And if someone says something that's like maybe contradictory to what I believe, it might just be like she said, or like Sankofa said, that we just kind of like find the middle ground between those two ideals, because it doesn't mean that what you're saying is wrong, what I'm saying is wrong. It just means like, how can we make it better? So, yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Bianca, thank you for putting together the presentation. And thank you for bringing non-alcoholic beer.
Yes, just for you.
Yes, thank you.
I do want everyone to be able, you have a question?
I have a question that I don't know that anyone will have an answer to right now, but I know that one of your charges is to work with Midtown Alliance to make this area of the city more art rich, more and so on. And the question that I have about that is how we break the mold. In other words, there's a lot of murals and they're great. There's a lot of passive art. And I walk to work in Midtown for a mile every day, and it's honestly the most boring mile I walk. Because the storefronts aren't full, and there's nothing happening, and the streets are kind of stripped clean of graffiti and stickers and things that I love. But my question is, how do we create art installations that involve us, or that are really very Atlanta, and that are somehow interactive, that we as citizens who are either inhabiting this, because we live and work here, or inhabiting this because we commute here, or inhabiting this because we just happen to be in Midtown, can participate in and be part of. And I don't know the answer, but it seems to me like the kind of work you all are doing would be really great for exploring that. So that's just a question I have about Midtown and this project.
I mean, we're on that way, so like what you said is what we talk about, what we're discussing, like how it's a dead walk, or how people are just really like in their own zone, they don't stop to look up. And for us, it really is about how can we create a way to like, everyone is like, what is that? What can we stop and have a conversation about? So we are on the same page in terms of how can we brighten the space, for sure.
And also mixing technology, bringing technology to these more static spaces, or static ways of doing art, making it more three-dimensional, making it more interactive. I think that's one of the draws that drew me to joining this collective. I've tried some things myself that got really good feedback. One time I spray painted a TV screen in Cross Street Tunnel and projected a visual installation on it, and people were like, oh my God, this is so cool. I want to do more of that. I want to bring that to a space where people are walking every day. And I think Kristen agrees with that. So we're definitely on that wavelength with this collective.
Awesome. And I don't have anything against murals.
Murals are cool, but they can be cooler.
But we there. We understand. It's like, what's this sculpture here for? Like, what does it even mean? Like, no one's stopping to look at it, no one's stopping to talk about it, everyone's walking past it. So I need someone to explain the car and the sock sculpture to me.
So you asked for maybe like suggestions. So in sitting here listening, it was a lot of information and a lot to consume and a lot to understand about the collective. So we have activism, and we have old Atlanta, and we have video projections and design and architecture. And so for me, I constantly live in a space where I'm trying not to envision or experience systemic oppression, but rather trying to envision systemic adulation, right? Specifically for Black people in Atlanta. And what I would love to see, like when I saw you post This Is Hip Hop on the High, I was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you better work, right? And this idea of like Atlanta and what, because I'm not a native. I've been here for 13 years, but I'm from Florida. So like what Atlanta used to look like and what Atlanta used to feel like is a myth. It's like this thing that you can palpably feel here. But if you're not from here, you don't really know.
You don't really know.
Right?
Which
So,
is something we speak about a lot.
right. And thinking about this like multi-generational thing. So I would love to see like Andrew Young swearing in projected onto the Capitol. I would love to see images of Freaknik on walls down Peach Street. I would love to see, you know, things like that. You know, like what was old Atlanta for us in a space where like the culture that we brought is not being erased, but it's being lauded. You know?
That's what you mean, You had a question.
It's more of a statement.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for letting me be here. Son Christopher for inviting me, and even the collector for even allowing me to be here. I think one of the things that could help is documentation. So many times people are doing things in their silos, and at the same time they don't necessarily know how to market and brand themselves. So the reason why I'm here is that we can take this information. We can tell people when they leave here and they're like, well, how was it when they got there? Well, what does the space look like? So the media to me is what we have to take back and tell our own stories. So that way when we do things, anything, we have the documentation to support it, to build alliances, and more importantly for you to tell your own story and be the narrative of it. And just like the old way, we can bring the old way into the new way. The old way is video, the new way is having the internet to actually get your information out. So I think that we make sure that we tell our stories and tell our stories with video and support each other. And when we support each other and capture it, then that is what we can use to give to other people in the future to tell a story about what Atlanta was back in the day or what it's supposed to be. And we have to become the historians, and taking the story and put it in video format is what I believe is a good step.
Straight up, the archive and Sankofa and, you know what I'm saying, all of that, looking back to move forward.
Yeah, we're on that way.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Did anyone have, I want to make sure everyone has the chance to interact with some of the pieces from the collective members. So did anyone else have any questions? No?
Or just thoughts,
Or thoughts?
reflections.
You all are dope.
Okay. Well, grab some wine. Definitely interact before you go with some of these pieces here. I definitely want to go check out. I haven't even experienced your Oculus thing over there. And thank you again for coming. And
Follow Wild Seed ATL on Instagram, Wild Seed ATL. We are living our following, talking about all these great marketing tools. Also, everybody in this room is documentarian. Okay, if you have a phone, you're a documentarian. So don't be afraid to pull out your phone, take pictures, to follow somebody, to have a conversation, to get folks' numbers. We that close in this room. So just don't be afraid to interact with any of these lovely people, and definitely interact with our Instagram, WildCATL. I'm a shameless plugger. So.
Yes.
And then one last thing, with Laura's blessing, we do intend to facilitate workshops as well. So we're not, well, I don't want to speak for everybody, but something that's very personal and passionate about is empowering people with the tools to like do whatever it is that you want to do, make whatever you want to make. It doesn't do me any good to like, know how to do some of the things you all have seen and just kind of like keep all that to myself. I'm not gonna lie, like I've learned most of the stuff I know from YouTube. So I mean, it's nothing for me to share that information. And I mean, I feel like the collective, they have we're all very giving people as well. So if any of the skills that you see that some of us have, even if it's just like hitting up the IG and saying, hey, I'm kind of interested in this, let us know, because, you know, it would be great to do some workshops. I know MODA is all about workshops. Like I said, it's something that I'm personally very passionate about, so even if a collective member isn't available, if it's something that like they can teach me and I teach it, or like whatever, you know, don't hesitate to be activated as well in that way. So it's not just again, a one-way conversation of us, you know, pushing things out, but like, I think it would be great if all of us were, you know, expanding our skills, contributing to, you know, what we're seeing out in Midtown, and bonding and building over that. That's it.